Let me ask you something. Are they really gone? Or is that just what they want you to believe? People don't just move on overnight. They don't erase every feeling, every shared moment, every promise they once believed in. That's not how human psychology works. But here you are, stuck in your own head, convinced they've already forgotten about you, thinking they're laughing in someone else's arms while you're drowning in your own thoughts. Let me tell you the truth. They haven't moved on. They're distracting themselves, and there's a big difference. Right now, they're doing what most people do, avoiding, running, covering up the emptiness with someone new. Because here's the thing, people don't break bonds, they suppress them. They bury their emotions under the illusion of something new, hoping it'll erase what they haven't truly dealt with. But reality doesn't work that way, and deep down, they know it. So why does it feel like they're already gone? Why does it seem like they've completely erased you from their life? Simple, because you're measuring your worth based on their actions, not your own. That ends today. From this moment forward, you stop playing the victim. You stop watching their life like a movie you weren't invited to. You shift your focus back to the one thing you actually control, yourself. Because the moment you do that, everything changes. Think about it. A strong person doesn't sit around wondering why someone left. They don't chase, they don't beg, and they don't wait for someone to come back and validate them. A strong person stands up, moves forward, and builds a life so powerful that those who walked away are forced to look back in regret. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's what this moment is about: strength, clarity, and power. Right now, they're trying to convince themselves that you don't matter, that what you shared was just a phase, something they can replace. But you and I both know the truth. What you had was real. And real connections don't just disappear. They can pretend, they can distract themselves, they can run, but they can't escape the weight of what they lost. One day, when the excitement of the new fades, when the silence creeps in, when they no longer have you to lean on, they'll feel it. The loss, the regret, the truth they've been avoiding. But by then, you won't be the same person they left behind. You won't be waiting. You won't be checking your phone, hoping for a message. You won't be stuck in the past, wondering if they still think about you. You'll be so far ahead, so focused on your own growth, that their absence won't even matter anymore. So ask yourself, are you going to waste your time wondering if they still care? Or are you going to become the person they never thought you'd be without them? The choice is yours. If you're done believing in illusions, if you're ready to reclaim your power, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below. I refuse to be an option. Now let's begin. 1. The mirage of moving on. So they're with someone new, and you think that means they're happy. You think that means they've moved on. No, that's just the illusion they want you, and maybe even themselves, to believe. People don't heal by replacing. They don't erase years of emotions by jumping into something new. They distract, and distractions don't last. Most people aren't strong enough to sit with their emotions. They don't want to face the discomfort of loss. Instead, they run. They grab onto the nearest thing that feels different, exciting or numbing, anything to avoid the silence, the regret, the weight of what they walked away from. It's like slapping a fresh coat of paint over a crumbling wall. It looks fine on the outside, but underneath, the cracks are still there. But here's where you go wrong. You believe the show. A few pictures, a couple of posts, some words from mutual friends, and suddenly your mind goes into overdrive. You start imagining a perfect love story. You start convincing yourself they've erased you, like you never mattered. But let's be real. When have people ever put the truth on display? Do you really think they're going to advertise their regrets, their moments of doubt, the nights they lie awake thinking about you? No, they're going to play their role, because admitting the truth means facing it, and they're not ready for that yet. Ask yourself this: if they were truly at peace, would they need to prove it? Would they need to make sure the world sees it? Real happiness is quiet. It doesn't need validation or an audience. But what you're seeing, that's theater, a performance for the world, a mask to cover what they don't want to feel. It's like a gambler who just lost everything at the table, but instead of walking away, they go all in on another hand, hoping it'll fix everything. But deep down, they know the truth. What's lost is lost. No quick fix will bring it back. And you have a choice. You can sit here obsessing over the illusion, letting it control your emotions, making it your reality, or you can see it for what it truly is, a temporary distraction, a desperate attempt to bury what hasn't been dealt with. Because when you truly understand that, you stop reacting. You stop giving your power away. You realize that real strength isn't about proving you don't care. It's about actually not caring. Because the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And indifference is what they'll feel the moment you stop feeding the illusion. The moment you stop watching their life like it has anything to do with yours. The moment you decide that your happiness isn't something they get to control anymore. People think moving on means replacing, but true moving on happens when you don't need anyone to fill the space they left. When you build something real instead of chasing distractions. When you become so focused on your own growth that their absence stops feeling like a loss and starts feeling like freedom. That's where you're headed. And once you get there, you won't care whether they've moved on or not, because you'll be too busy actually living. 2, they walked away. That's their burden, not yours. You keep asking yourself, why did they leave? Was it something you did? Something you said? Were you not enough? No, their leaving was never about you. It was about them. Until you understand that, you'll stay trapped in a cycle of self-doubt and overthinking. People don't walk away from love. They walk away from themselves, from their own fears, their own insecurities, their own inability to handle real emotional depth. When someone leaves, it's usually not because you failed. It's because they did. Some people don't have the capacity to appreciate something real. They say they want love, but when they get it, they don't know what to do with it. It's like handing a masterpiece to someone who only sees scribbles. They either can't recognize its value, or they're too afraid to handle it. Instead of dealing with that, they take the easy way out. They convince themselves they need something different. They say they need space, that they're searching for happiness. But happiness isn't found by running away. It's found by facing yourself. And that's the difference between you and them. You are willing to show up, to be real, to build something solid. They, on the other hand, were looking for an escape, not from you, but from their own reflection. So why are you blaming yourself for their choice? Why are you internalizing their inability to handle something real? If someone walks away from you, That's their burden to carry, not yours. Because you gave them something most people never experience: depth, loyalty, something real. And instead of valuing it, they threw it away. That's not your failure. That's their regret waiting to happen. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day, they're gonna wake up and realize what they lost. They'll see the difference between real and temporary, between depth and distraction. And by then, you won't be there anymore. That's when the weight of their decision will finally hit. Because people don't regret losing something fake. They regret losing something real. And you were real. They just weren't ready for it. 3. The power of disappearing. Right now, you think they're forgetting about you, that every day you stay silent, they drift further away, that if you don't reach out, they'll never look back. No, that's not how human psychology works. People don't notice what's always there. They take it for granted. But the moment it's gone, the moment they can't have it whenever they want, that's when they start to feel it. And the deeper the connection was, the stronger that feeling becomes. Because here's the truth. Your absence doesn't push them away. It forces them to face what they lost. It creates space for realization, for regret, for curiosity. It makes them wonder why you're not chasing, why you're not begging, why you seem completely unbothered. And that's power. Most people don't understand this. They panic. They send a message, they check in, they post things just to get a reaction. But every time you do that, you're proving that you're still emotionally tied to them. You're showing them they still have a hold on you. And guess what? They won't respect that. People only value what they have to earn. They only miss what feels truly lost. Imagine a book sitting on a shelf for years. No one cares about it. It's just there. But the moment someone takes it away, suddenly everyone wants it. Not because they were actually interested before, but because they can't have it now. Your absence works the same way. It's not about being petty. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding your own value. It's about realizing that you don't need to be someone's constant option. You're not a backup plan. You're not a safety net. Disappearing doesn't mean you're trying to teach them a lesson. It means you have better things to do. It means you're not sitting around waiting for someone to wake up and recognize your worth. And when they finally do, you'll be long gone. Because the person who truly wins isn't the one waiting to be missed. It's the one who moves forward so far ahead that when they finally look back, there's nothing left to reach for. 4. The trap of trying to win. You've seen it all before. The extravagant social media posts, the rebound relationships, the overly happy photos that only seem to exist so one specific person will notice. It's a familiar routine. People scrambling to appear as though they're on top of the world after a breakup, as if the end of one chapter automatically means they have to launch themselves into a dazzling new life. The question is, why? Why do people feel this overwhelming urge to prove they've moved on faster or better than the person they left behind, or who left them? The answer is simpler than you might think. They're not trying to convince the public. They're trying to convince themselves. This is the trap of trying to win after a breakup. The problem lies in the very idea of turning a breakup into a competition. Who's happier first? Who looks better? Who appears to have replaced the other more quickly? It's like a twisted scoreboard where people tally points based on how many likes their new photos get, or how often they're spotted at parties, smiling like they've never had a sad day in their life. But here's the thing. Genuine confidence doesn't need an audience, and true happiness doesn't require applause. If someone has to prove they've moved on, it's a sign they're not as free as they claim. Picture it like a stage performance, lights flashing, music blaring, actors reciting lines. It looks impressive from the audience's perspective, but backstage, it's chaos, nerves, quick costume changes, missing props. All that glitz is just to maintain the illusion. The person who's busy creating this spectacle might be plagued by the same insecurities, questions, and regrets that anyone else feels. They just happen to be better at acting like nothing's wrong. What about you? You might feel the pull to do the same. Maybe your mind whispers that if you don't show off how over it you are, you'll look weak. Or maybe you've caught yourself scrolling through your feed at 2 a.m., looking for signs that they're actually miserable behind that new relationship or that forced smile. That's the moment you have to ask yourself, why am I still focusing on them? Because the instant you try to outdo them, you've already surrendered your power. You're letting their actions dictate your moves, their life direct your narrative. True power means you control your own story, and you're not swayed by someone else's stage show. People often assume that winning after a breakup means appearing unbothered or finding someone new as fast as possible. In reality, winning isn't even the right term. If you're truly at peace, genuine peace doesn't need to compare itself to anyone else. It doesn't check to see how many points it scored, because it stopped playing the game a long time ago. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, once said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." In the context of a breakup, you could interpret this as freedom consisting not in proving anything to anyone, but in no longer needing validation in the first place. When you see them flaunting a new relationship, constantly uploading pictures, or making those indirect posts meant to show how incredibly joyful they are, remember, if you have to shout about your happiness, it's often because you haven't convinced yourself you truly feel it. It's a temporary measure, like a bright spotlight that can be switched off the moment the camera stops rolling. And when the lights go down, all that's left is the person they can't escape, themselves. If they're still carrying guilt, confusion, or regret, those feelings won't vanish just because they posted a smiling picture at a party. A natural question at this point might be, so what do I do if I'm feeling left behind? If I'm watching them act like nothing ever happened? The truth is, you don't have to do anything. The moment you try to prove you're better off, you're back in the same cycle, reacting, comparing, measuring your progress against someone else's facade. Real growth happens when you invest in your own life, not as a performance, but as a reality. Spend time doing things you genuinely enjoy, exploring your own passions and interests. Strengthen the relationships you have with friends and family who support you without judgment. Focus on becoming the best version of yourself because you want to, not because you're trying to outshine them. People who look at breakups like a race or a contest don't realize how much energy they're wasting on someone who's not even in their daily life anymore. Think of a runner who never stops looking over their shoulder to see where everyone else is. How can they possibly do their best? They're too focused on what others are doing, losing precious momentum, and never truly finding their own stride. You become that runner if you're constantly checking up on your ex or trying to one-up them. By stepping away from the competition altogether, you become free. You no longer have to stage your life for an audience of one. You're free to live on your own terms. Your priorities shift from how do I look to them to how do I feel about myself. That's the real test. And once you pass it, their attempts to display a dazzling new life stop bothering you. It no longer matters if they're traveling the world or dating someone who seems picture perfect. You're too busy creating a life you genuinely love. Eventually, this shift in perspective becomes obvious to anyone watching. And yes, that includes your ex. They may wonder, why aren't you reacting? Why aren't you trying to keep up? They might even feel unsettled because their performance no longer has the effect it once did. Where they expected jealousy or regret, they find calm acceptance, or even more shockingly, a lack of interest altogether. That's when they realize they've been acting in a play by themselves. And that moment of realization can be more powerful and impactful than any comment you could make. After all, the greatest sign of moving on is not how loudly you proclaim you've done it, but how quietly you live it. When you're genuinely over someone, you don't need an audience or a scoreboard. You don't need to post cryptic quotes or forced selfies to send a message. You simply exist in a space where their opinion and validation aren't required anymore. It's the kind of peace that can't be faked. So let them continue their show if that's what they need to do. Let them wear whatever mask makes them feel safe. You, on the other hand, can step off that stage and get busy living. Because the only thing you truly win by trying to compete is more anxiety, more insecurity, and more time wasted on something that's behind you. You gain nothing in the long run except a heavier load of unresolved emotions. You might never convince them, or anyone else for that matter, that you're happier, healthier, or doing better. And you don't need to. If you know you've found your own sense of self-worth, you don't need a trophy for that. Nobody hands out medals for emotional independence. It's a quiet victory you feel in your bones, one that seeps into every part of your life without needing external confirmation. That's the power of refusing to play the game. Once you realize the competition was rigged from the start, because the very idea of winning a breakup means you're still attached to it, you're free to focus on things that actually matter. And that's a form of freedom no staged photo or public display can ever truly imitate. 5. Rise above. Become unbreakable. You want to know the difference between someone who begs for another chance and someone who becomes unforgettable. It's not about revenge. It's not about rebounds or empty distractions. It's reinvention, a complete overhaul of who you are. You become so strong, so unshakable, that you can't even recognize the version of yourself who once cared about them leaving. Most people feel pain and waste it. They drown in self-pity, chase cheap thrills, or cling to short-term validation. It's like standing in a storm without shelter, hoping to feel better, but never doing anything to protect yourself. You, on the other hand, can do something different. You can take that pain and forge it into power. You pour it into your body, your mind, your discipline. You become sharper, stronger, more focused. And you know what happens then? You master yourself. And someone who masters themselves becomes untouchable. Imagine a blacksmith hammering raw steel over and over until it transforms into a flawless blade. That's you. The heartbreak, the confusion, the sleepless nights, they're all sparks flying in your workshop. Every hit strengthens you. Every spark reminds you that you're evolving. The steel you're refining is your willpower, and each strike makes you more resilient. The difference is that this time, you're not crafting a weapon for anyone else. You're crafting yourself. This is when the real shift begins. You stop chasing closure because you realize you were the prize all along. Instead of obsessing over who said what or whether they regret leaving, you tap into a deeper truth. It doesn't really matter anymore. Life doesn't have a rewind button, and you wouldn't press it even if it did, because you've got better places to go, higher peaks to climb, bigger goals to conquer. Picture someone lost in a maze, desperately trying to find their way out. They run down one corridor, then the next, searching for an exit that always seems just around the corner. That's how a lot of people handle breakups. They race from distraction to distraction, looking for anything that feels like relief. They think they're moving forward, but in reality, they're just going in circles. A Stoic approach is different. Instead of running aimlessly, you stop, take a breath, and look inward. You ask, what can I learn from this? How can I use this to level up? You face the pain head on, channel it into self-improvement, and refuse to let it paralyze you. Marcus Aurelius put it well when he said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, use the obstacle to fuel your growth. If heartbreak stands in your way, you transform it into the very reason you become better. As you rebuild, your energy shifts. Your world gets bigger because you're no longer stuck in the past. You realize there's a universe of possibilities out there. Meanwhile, they're still trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Or maybe they're ignoring it altogether. Either way, they're seeing a version of you who's no longer seeking validation. That's the irony. The moment you stop wanting them back, they start craving your presence. Human nature wants what it can't control, what it can't predict. And nothing is more compelling than a person on a mission, someone who moves with purpose and doesn't hinge their worth on another's opinion. You'll hear that question in your head. What if they come back? What if they reach out after I've grown? The truth is, by then, you might be so far ahead it won't matter anymore. You're not doing this to make them regret losing you, though that might happen. You're doing it because you refuse to stay stuck in a place that no longer serves you. Sometimes people think becoming untouchable means building a wall around your heart. That's not Stoicism. True Stoicism isn't about shutting down emotions. It's about controlling them, instead of letting them control you. It's about recognizing that external events like who leaves or who stays are often outside your power. What you can control is how you choose to respond. Do you respond with desperation or discipline? Do you cling to old stories or write a new one? When you fully commit to this rebuild, you start to feel a fire inside that doesn't rely on external praise or acceptance. You discover that the only person who truly needed to believe in your worth was you. That's where confidence comes from, the kind that doesn't need to shout or flaunt. It's a quiet assurance that no matter what life throws at you, you'll keep forging a better version of yourself. Think about the day you'll look back on this moment. Will you see it as the phase where you lost yourself? Or will it be the chapter where everything changed? The moment you decided enough was enough, and you took all that pain, all that doubt, and turned it into unstoppable progress. Some people never reach that point. They spend years trapped in a cycle of bitterness, still scrolling through old photos, still talking about the one who left. But not you. You're done with that narrative. And once you reach this new level, there's no returning to who you used to be. You won't fit back into the old mold. You've outgrown it. You've become someone who understands the value of each day and doesn't waste energy hoping for external validation. You've built a life that thrives on purpose, discipline, and relentless self-improvement. That's the essence of becoming untouchable. You're not bulletproof because you never feel pain. You're bulletproof because you've transformed the pain into armor shaped from self-respect and determination. You've realized you have better things to do than wait for someone to recognize your worth. You already know it, and that makes you unstoppable. 6. Magnetic by letting go. You've likely heard the saying, the less you care, the more they chase. But why does detachment work? Why does distancing yourself from the need for external validation make you infinitely more attractive than any game or scheme? It's simple. Nothing is more powerful than someone who doesn't crave approval. Most people operate from a place of lack. They hunger for attention, for reassurance, for the kind of validation that makes their self-worth dependent on what others think. When a person is desperate for these things, that desperation can be sensed like a beacon, and it repels rather than attracts. In contrast, when you stop seeking that external validation and instead focus on cultivating inner confidence, you become magnetic. You radiate an energy of calm assurance, and that energy draws others in naturally. Imagine a serene lake in the early morning. The water is undisturbed, reflecting the sky in perfect clarity. There's no rippling chaos. There's only an unwavering presence. That's the essence of detachment. It isn't about ignoring the world, but rather about being so secure within yourself that you no longer feel the need to constantly prove your worth. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When you choose not to react out of desperation or insecurity, you show that your inner world is so rich and stable that external events simply cannot disturb it. At some point, a question might arise. Doesn't detachment mean being cold or indifferent? Not at all. True detachment is about balancing your inner life with your external actions. It's like a tree with deep roots. While its branches may sway in the wind, its foundation remains unshaken. That kind of stability is incredibly attractive because it means you are not constantly influenced by the opinions or actions of others. Instead, you operate from a place of inner strength. There's a profound metaphor in the idea of a magnet. A magnet does not chase or fight to hold on to the metal. It attracts. It simply exists in a state of natural force, and its presence is enough to pull the metal close. In the same way, when you stop chasing validation, you allow your inherent qualities to shine. You move with purpose, guided by your own principles rather than the fleeting approval of others. It's not about being aloof or detached in a negative sense. It's about recognizing that your happiness isn't contingent on someone else's reaction. Detachment means you're living authentically, prioritizing your own well-being over the unpredictable tides of external opinions. It's the difference between a plant that wilts when it's overwatered and one that thrives in the right balance of sunlight and moisture. The thriving plant doesn't shout about its beauty. It simply exists, flourishing quietly and naturally. Some might wonder, how can I be attractive if I'm not showing interest? The truth is, genuine interest doesn't need to be broadcasted like a billboard. It's felt in the quiet confidence of someone who is content with who they are. When you're not trying to force a connection, you allow the natural chemistry between people to develop. You are no longer a participant in a competitive game of one-upmanship. Instead, you're simply living your truth, and that authenticity is irresistible. The art of detachment also frees you from the exhausting habit of overanalyzing every interaction. When you stop fixating on the need to impress, you open up space to truly experience each moment for what it is. You begin to appreciate the beauty in life without needing a constant reminder of your own value. It's like stepping back from a painting. When you're too close, all you see are the brushstrokes. Step back, and you see the masterpiece. In the end, detachment is about control. It's not control over others, but control over yourself. It's the recognition that the only approval you truly need is your own. As you build that inner foundation, you begin to move through life with an effortless grace that commands attention without demanding it. You set a standard that others find compelling, not because you're trying to impress, but because you're simply at peace with who you are. This isn't a strategy born out of indifference. It's a profound acceptance of your own worth. It's knowing that when you release the need to chase, you also release the energy that was once spent on constant validation. That energy can now be invested in your growth, your passions, and the relationships that genuinely matter. It transforms your presence from something that is sought after to something that naturally draws people in. And in that transformation lies the true secret of attraction, being magnetic by letting go. 7. You were always in the driver's seat. Here's the final Stoic truth. You were never powerless. Even when they left, even when they moved on, even when you felt lost, wondering if they would ever regret their decision, the control was always yours. You just didn't see it. It isn't about forcing outcomes or trying to make them miss you. It's about mastering your own mind, emotions, and reactions. As Epictetus wisely noted, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When you learn to control your inner world, no external circumstance can ever truly shake you. Imagine driving a car on a winding road. The road represents life and its many twists and turns, unexpected events, good days, bad days, moments of joy and sorrow. The car's steering wheel, firmly in your grip, symbolizes your inner power. No matter how sharp the turn or how turbulent the ride, you are the one steering. You set your direction. You decide when to accelerate, when to slow down, and when to stop. That is the essence of control. Even when someone else takes a different route, or when you face unexpected obstacles, you maintain the power to navigate your journey. There might be moments when you ask, but what if they come back? What if I still feel the sting of their absence? The truth is, the answer lies not in their actions, but in your reaction. When you stop chasing, stop wondering whether they will ever regret leaving, and stop trying to prove your worth, you begin to see that the only opinion that matters is your own. As Marcus Aurelius said, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. The moment you let go of the need for external validation, you reclaim your power. Think of a garden that you tend with care. Every seed you plant, every weed you pull, every bit of water you provide contributes to the garden's beauty. Yet the garden's growth is not dependent on the opinions of passers-by. It flourishes because of your constant attention and care. Similarly, Your inner self blossoms when you invest your energy in self-improvement rather than in improving something for someone else. Your life becomes a vibrant display of growth and strength, independent of anyone else's recognition. You might wonder, how do I truly embrace this control? It starts with understanding that control doesn't come from reacting to slights or from obsessing over what might have been. Instead, it comes from a deep, unshakable acceptance that you hold the reins of your own destiny. When you stop looking for signs that they regret their decision, you begin to see that you've been the prize all along. The more you focus on building a fulfilling life that is independent of their validation, the more you tap into an inner strength that is both rare and powerful. It's important to remember that when you let go, not just of them, but of that old version of yourself that needed external validation, you transform. You evolve into someone who doesn't seek to fill a void with empty gestures or frantic messages. Instead, you invest in yourself, in your growth, your dreams, and your well-being. You begin to understand that the only real power is the power you have over your own thoughts and emotions. When you master yourself, you become untouchable. No external event or person can knock you off balance because your inner world is secure and resilient. Consider the metaphor of a fortress. A fortress is built brick by brick, layer upon layer, until it stands strong against any attack. That fortress is your inner self. Each brick represents a moment of self-mastery, a decision to rise above the chaos, to not be swayed by fleeting emotions or external opinions. When your fortress is complete, even the most relentless storms of life cannot penetrate it. You become so absorbed in your own power that the actions of others, even if they seem significant in the moment, fade into irrelevance. There may be a lingering question in your mind. What if I miss them? What if the thought of what might have been still haunts me? Know that this is a natural part of healing and growth. But the key is not to let these thoughts define you. Instead, use them as a reminder that every experience is an opportunity to learn and evolve. Every moment of heartache, every tear shed, every sleepless night is fuel. Fuel that, when harnessed correctly, can transform you into a version of yourself that is stronger, wiser, and more in tune with the true measure of power. By embracing this stoic truth, you shift your perspective entirely. You no longer see life as a series of setbacks or losses, but as a canvas upon which you can paint your own destiny. You are no longer at the mercy of someone else's choices. You are the master of your own fate. And in that realization lies the true beauty of control. The freedom to live life on your own terms, to chase your own dreams, and to find happiness in the person you are becoming. Remember, you were always in the driver's seat. You held the wheel even when you didn't realize it. The moment you accept this truth, the past loses its grip, and you move forward with a clarity and purpose that nothing can undermine. In this state of self-mastery, you are free to build a future that reflects your deepest values and aspirations, a future that is entirely yours.